My name is Jeremiah Nast. I am one of the senior advisors on the program. I've been working the program for about 2 years now. I've seen a lot of great successes from students, including some of the students that will be speaking today. I have a bit of a history in sport. I used to work in the recreational side of things. I used to manage a fitness center before moving into higher ed. So I'm excited to speak to some students who are current students in the program today. Bryson, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yes, absolutely. Hi, I'm Bryson Brownlee. I'm an admissions advisor with the program as well. I've been here for about 5 months now, which has gone by extremely fast. And as they say, time flies when you're having fun. And I definitely have had a lot of fun uh, in the experience with helping a lot of students, such as yourself, realize their dreams in sports. With my background in sports as well, I played football in college, I mentor young athletes, and I also help some young athletes with sports performance training as well. So I really do love and enjoy being able to help people realize their sports dreams.
Perfect. And now we'll introduce our panelists. Starting with you, Kathleen, if you'd like to give us a quick little rundown of who you are and what has you in the program.
Yeah. Hey guys, I am Kathleen Geyer. I am in Kansas City. I went to KU for my undergrad and then graduated with a degree in journalism focused on sports. Bounced around with MLB.com, did an internship there, and then went to the Kansas City Star. Worked briefly with Yahoo Sports as well, back covering KU, and then did some front office work with FC Kansas City when they were here in the Missouri Comets. And I am just really looking to get back into kind of a communications role that is able to blend both of those skills. And so I'm in my second semester in the program and am scheduled to graduate in fall of 2022.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Ian?
Yep, I'm Ian Langberg. I started in the program back in August of last year, August of 2020. I did my undergrad. I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I did my undergrad at a small college called St. John's University, and accounting was my background actually. So I did accounting for a couple of years, and then kind of had a chance to, like, with the quarantine and everything, think about what I really wanted to do with my life. And sports has always been my passion. It's what I'm into and what has driven me. So I started talking to Jeremiah actually, just kind of like on what the program was about, and decided that it'd be a good fit for me. And then at the same time, was able to get started with an NFL agency here in Minneapolis, where I've been working ever since. So that's what I'm doing, and kind of my background in the program.
Perfect. Thank you, Ian. And Nikki.
Hi, my name is Nikki Martin. I'm currently in Orlando, but I am from West Virginia. I went to West Virginia University for my undergrad. My undergrad is in secondary ed, and I decided I wanted to teach. So from there, I was working on a master's degree in secondary education as well. From there, I decided I like teaching, just maybe not in the traditional classroom sense. So I went to law school. And during law school, my advisor was an NFL agent for a while. So we got to talking about what I really wanted to do and kind of my passions of helping students and people realize their dreams. And kind of tossed around the idea of maybe going into sports. It's always been something I'm really interested in and passionate about. So I kind of wanted to blend those two things together, and I'd really like to get back into higher education and work in maybe compliance with using my law background. Eventually, I'd really like to be an athletic director.
Perfect. And we're really excited to get all you guys' feedback. For everybody who is watching right now, feel free to use the Q&A function while we're speaking with the students. We will ask your question to make sure that we'll get to all of them at the end. We'll also have a Q&A, but if we see fit, we'll chime right in and ask your questions to the students as they are going through the program here. So we'll get this started off, and I will ask, and we'll go in that same order. So Kathleen, if you'd like to answer, why did you choose the sport management program at KU, and why was it important to you that it was online?
With my history at KU, I had a really great experience in undergrad and have always kind of kept an eye on some of their other programs. I, at the time, was looking at potentially going to law school or doing some graduate work in journalism, and then kind of overnight brought up the question of, what exactly is the sport management program, and decided to really look into it. The advisors were super helpful, answered all my questions. And when I looked at the coursework, every class seemed to just kind of be a bullet list of things that I was interested in. And so it really seemed like a perfect fit, and it's been something I've really enjoyed so far. It was important to me that it was online. This was kind of at the beginning or in the middle of COVID. So there were, some questions about just how school would work, first of all, but then I was working a full-time job, and I have my own consulting company, which is that KLG social media that was listed on the previous page. But it has allowed me to really pursue something that I want to kind of on my own time between those other commitments.
Perfect. Ian?
Yeah, so I chose kind of similar to Kathleen. I chose the program specifically because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do at the time. Some sport management or sports programs that you'll find are a little bit more like drilled down in terms of like specifically what they do. But if you do look at the course list, it covers everything. It's finance, it's marketing, it's facilities. I mean, there's kind of you get a broad. Each class drills in deep to its area, but you get a broad knowledge base, which was a big plus for me in choosing the program. And then the online thing was super important because I knew I was going to be working another job as I did it. And the fact that the program had been online too, like it was a time when there was a lot of programs moving to online, but KU has been online. You can correct me if I'm wrong, advisors, but it was online for a while before then. So that was a big factor to me because it's like, okay, they know what they're doing with this. It's meant to be done outside of a job, and I knew I was going to be doing the job.
Perfect. And I would correct you if you're wrong. I don't know the exact number of years. I've been working on the program for 2 though. And I was not the start of the program. But Nikki?
Yeah, so it was really important for me to choose KU because it was more like a holistic program. Some of the other programs I was looking at really wanted to pigeonhole me into kind of one area of sports management. And with my background, they really were wanting to say, oh, like you'd be great for our sports law, kind of, specialty. And, wanting to be an athletic director, I really wanted something that was holistic. And, like Kathleen said, you don't really know the breadth of sports management until you kind of really look at the course programming and the different classes that you're able to take. So that was one of the top reasons why I chose KU. But online, it was important. I'm in Orlando, so I'm nowhere near a campus. So I needed something that was going to be allow me to live in Florida. So that was really important online. And then obviously, like everyone else said, I was working as a full-time attorney, so I needed the flexibility to be able to work on classes during my time.
Thank you for those answers. I'll take the next question for Kathleen first. Do you feel like you have access to the professors when you have questions? And how involved are your professors?
My professors have been very easy to get a hold of so far, and really involved. Some of them send weekly emails kind of reminding us of different assignments coming up or different things to kind of keep an eye on, which has been really helpful. And then every class so far has also presented an opportunity for us to hop on a Zoom call and just kind of check in mid-class. And I think that's been really important, just to get to know the person on the other side of the program, since it's not designated classes and there aren't a ton of videos involved. We do a lot of work with classmates, but we don't necessarily work directly with the professors very often, but they've been very accessible, and have, one thing that's really impressed me is just the differences in their experience as well. And so I think that that's been something really interesting to be able to connect with them and kind of see how they're using sport management in their day-to-day lives as well.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Kathleen. Ian?
I'd say access is really easy, and people, it's quick responses. I mean, that's the big thing that I think is key in situations like this, is that we're all online. People are all over the country, and many of us are working different jobs while we are taking this program. Not everyone necessarily is, but I've had questions and then gotten responses in a half hour at weird times. So the professors are very accessible, but I also think it's one of those things when you get what you put in. If you want to ask a lot of questions, they'll be there for you for that, but they're also not on top of you, which I see as just as big of a benefit. Like, if I don't know, if you're struggling, they're there for you, but if you don't need them necessarily, they deliver the lecture and give you the assignments, and they'll give you feedback on your homework, and that's it. It's really whatever you want them to be, they're there for you on that.
Nikki?
So I definitely have, kind of the same like sentiment as Ian, really, quick responses. I've never had something be more than a day before I have a response or an answer to a question or anything like that. And it's definitely, they're very involved as far as checking in, making sure that you're comfortable with the content, making sure that you're comfortable with where you are, not just in the course, but kind of overall. Like, I've always had professors say, okay, like, we know that you're also working full time. How is that working for you? Is everything good? Is there anything that I can help you with, outside of the designated, class? So I think it's definitely professors super involved if you want to be, and they're definitely there for support.
All right, and we'll go back to Kathleen. On the same kind of note, have you been interacting with your classmates? Also, are there group projects involved? And what's kind of the divide between individual versus group work?
I would say that we've had discussions. These are usually Zoom calls where we are connecting in groups of 3 or 4. And those are probably scheduled once every other week. And it's been kind of a scramble of different classmates, which has been interesting because we get to learn a little bit about each other's background. And then we have 2 or 3 kind of question prompts that we go through. And so I think I've been able to meet probably at least half of my program already through my first 3.5 courses. And so that's been really interesting too, just to learn more about other people's backgrounds. And then we also have written discussion posts as well.
Excellent. Ian?
Yeah, so the interaction with classmates, you just can't go in expecting it to be the same as in-person school, because it's not. You're not in class with each other every day. You're not able to sit there and bounce things off each other necessarily, but they do a good job of getting you involved with those group Zooms like Kathleen was talking about. Probably about, I don't know, every other week or so, we're doing a discussion where we're getting on Zoom actually with our classmates. And if not, then you're doing the written discussion post. So there's almost always some interaction with classmates. I think it's just important to go in with the mindset of it's not going to be the same as an in-person interaction with classmates would be.
Thank you. Nikki?
Yeah, just the kind of the same sentiment as Ian and Kathleen. Very, every other week you're getting on those Zoom calls, which is nice now that that's more, I guess, happening in like daily life anyway. It doesn't seem as odd, I guess, as it might have 2 or 3 years ago. But yeah, definitely lots of lots of interaction that way. And then I definitely think that, at least for myself, like being able to reach out to other classmates, like via like LinkedIn and those types of things, definitely available, not just within the class, but like outside on those social media sites as well.
And I just like to add where maybe the lack of interaction is, or not, I shouldn't say lack, there's a lot of interaction, but where not having it be in-person interaction can take away from some of your schoolwork side of things. It allows you to have all of these connections. To Nikki's point there, like people are in what I think are cool jobs. There's people working for professional teams. There's people at all sorts of stages and all over the country that you're getting to interact with because of the way that this is set up. So.
And to your point, Ian, I know Dr. Bass, and if anyone's looking for some interesting content to look at about the program, I really couldn't recommend the Twitter thread or Facebook page enough. Dr. Bass recently posted KU Sport Management students and grads that had acquired different positions in sport, and there's a lot of people in the program currently that were posted that had some really interesting jobs, ranging from I believe there was an NFL scout on there to people working at different levels of management. So I couldn't recommend looking into that enough.
All right. So what was your favorite class and why? And can you describe the cohort bonding or team building in an online environment?
I'm only a couple of classes in, but so far my favorite class was the sport ethics. Along with my journalism degree, I do have a minor in philosophy. And so it was kind of interesting getting back to a little bit of that theory and then really diving into some current ethical issues in sport. That's something that has been particularly interesting to me, and takes up a lot of my day-to-day conversation with friends and family. And so I really enjoyed that. And I think it was a really interesting way to kind of push us to think a little more deeply about sport and how it kind of affects the world at large. And then team building in the online environment, I think back to Ian's point about, the program, I think, is really dependent on how much effort and passion you're going to put into it. There are definitely opportunities to connect and learn from each other. And I think all of it works best when we're all interested in what everyone else has to say and interested in really making the most of those discussions, because that's kind of the way that I think, again, we challenge ourselves to kind of open up beyond the book, beyond the regular lesson plan.
Ian?
Yeah, so I'd say, and that my favorite class so far was my sport finance class. Part of it has a little bit to do with my background, I'll admit that. But I really liked some of the projects that we had there. It was a little bit more, it was opened up, and there was just a lot of things that I liked about it. But again, partially because of that's where my background is. So that's stuff that's interesting to me. And then as far as the team building thing, I think one thing that's important to the team building environment with our online stuff is shared experience. Like you go through with just people who've kind of been in the program for the same amount of time, who are taking those same classes as you. And whenever you have shared experiences with people, it just makes it easier to like connect with them. So again, to Kathleen's point, like people dive pretty deep on these discussions when we're having them, that we talked about earlier, and you take a prompt and you run with it, and it's like kind of a cool thing because everybody has a passion for what we're doing. You're not in this program if you don't love sports. So I think it's very easy to build a team environment even though it's online.
Excellent. And Nikki?
So my favorite class was definitely our ethics class that I took this spring semester. And I think a lot of that has to do with with my job. As an attorney, you're constantly faced with ethical challenges. So getting to apply that in a sports context was very interesting to me. It was kind of the peak of whether or not some of these different sports were going to be able to have their seasons. So a lot of our conversation revolved around actual things that were going on in real time. Wasn't some like theoretical what ifs. It was, these are really happening right now. Is it ethical to do X, Y, or Z? And these were kind of the same conversations that I'm sure were going on in many athletic departments around the country. So I found that extremely interesting. And in regards to the team building in the online environment, I think it's really great that so many people are willing to share their experiences. People are very open and are very willing to talk about what they're doing or what they've done in the past, which makes it really great. So that way, everyone has an opportunity to kind of get to know everyone else in a very like comfortable environment to ask questions and really learn about each other.
All right. And going back to Kathleen, were you able to apply what you learned in class to your work?
Yes, I think even though I'm not specifically in a sport position right now, it's making me think about what I want to be doing. And I think that's, again, one of the huge benefits of having such a wide ranging program is that you're really able to kind of figure out what excites you and what you're passionate about. And, even whether you're enjoying it and thinking about pursuing that further, or you're ruling that out. That's another important role. But I think even the organizational behavior class, helped in just a regular work environment as well. And the ethical questions, another just general purpose of that is to make us better people and better thinkers. So I think that everything so far has been really practical knowledge, as well as, very helpful to our future sport careers.
Excellent. Ian?
I have had a lot of great application to my work, to Kathleen's point, whether it's things that are like personal applications, where you take, like we had this organizational behavior class, which kind of taught, which it was in a sports sense, but it was more about, how does a business run? How do when groups of people get together, how do they interact with each other and stuff like that? And I like personally work for a small business, and it was like important for me to think about that, because I'm not just on a little team. It's like the whole business we're all kind of together, and that aspect is super applicable. There also was a time when we used a tool in one of my classes, and then literally a week later, I put that together as a presentation tool for something that I was doing at work. So there's like the actual applicable stuff, and then there's like the makes you better toolkit application stuff. But it's been super applicable to me so far.
Nice. And Nikki?
Yeah, so obviously right now I'm not in the sports world. I'm still an attorney in Florida. But I definitely think, like Ian said, like the organizational class that we took it applies in so many different contexts. And it's going to help you kind of learn those skills. So if you're not already working in a sports related career or job, you're able to kind of practice those skills. And that way they're easily transferable. And I think that's really helpful because not everyone is already in the sports arena. They're looking to make that transition, but definitely lots of things are helpful and transferable from one career to another.
Excellent. Okay. So do you feel like completing this program will put you in a competitive position to work in sports?
I do. I think that even reviewing job applications recently, I look at their requirements and the things that you're expected to learn and to know. I feel like this program is setting us up really, really nicely. And again, with just the breadth of what we're learning, I think that will be valuable in a number of different ways. to future employers.
Excellent. And Ian?
Yeah, I think there's a couple pieces, right? Like there's the sheet of paper that comes out with you have a master's degree in sports management, so that's going to automatically put you in a competitive position. But as far as what this program actually does for you, I think that people know KU. It's a place that's known as just a good university, but also good in sports. And I think that the online and all over the country aspect too gives you knowledge to find where your niche can be. Almost like I've heard of so many people in all these different jobs that's like this is interesting, or we get put in this, we have this mentor program that we go through where you see all the different jobs of people that have come through the program, and that breadth and like width of the country too, even just like geographically, puts you in a great position to be able to compete.
Absolutely. And Nikki?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to help. Number one, like obviously with my resume, like Kathleen said, a lot of professions and different careers in sports really want you to have a master's degree in sports management. So obviously that, but just the variety of classes and being able to take so many different things and not kind of really just focusing on one thing or another, I think is a real benefit, because you can bring a lot of different skills and attributes to these potential employers and say, yeah, like I know about compliance because I'm an attorney, but I also know how to run a business and work with work with people because of my organizational behaviors class. And I'm also comfortable with NCAA guidelines and how to apply them because I took an ethics class. So I definitely think that this, degree is going to put us in a great position to be hired.
Perfect. All right. And I know that actually right on cue, Ian just mentioned the mentorship program. And y'all have already spoken a little bit to contact with your classmates, but what are some networking opportunities in the online program? And also I know it's fairly recent that they instituted the mentorship program, but could you talk about your experience with that program? And we'll start with Kathleen again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the beginning of the networking opportunities is again with our classmates and then with the professors, and kind of learning about how they are applying these skills and where they are looking for the future. And then with that mentorship program, I was matched with a professional who is in St. Louis, but we have been communicating through LinkedIn. We follow each other on Twitter. And then I have worked with him for one assignment so far, where we hopped on the phone and really talked through, this assignment was about a current ethical issue in sport. And so I was able to kind of present one and talk through it with him and then ask him about his experiences. And I think that it's so important, especially with everything being online, to really kind of foster those relationships and have as many conversations as you can. And so I think that's such a valuable resource that the university's provided for us.
Perfect. Ian?
Yeah, I'll tell two quick stories here. Networking opportunities we've talked about with our classmates and stuff, but I also had a professor who set me up based on what one of my final papers was, set me up with one of his former students who's working as a professor at a different university, and like we connected on what I wrote my paper about. So it's just like an open part of the networking thing is like having an open environment that people want to network, and I think everybody's here to do that as part of it. So that's the networking aspect. As far as the mentorship program, my mentor for this class was my guy Rob, who is an AD at a smaller NAIA school, but we got to actually talk about, and this is not even what we were supposed to talk about, but I got to talk to him for a while about NIL, the name, image, and likeness stuff that was going on. And from my perspective as like part of an agency, and then he's like on the other side of it as an AD kind of, and it was really cool to be able to talk to someone who's like actually in the field about something that we both were dealing with from different sides. So that's my experience at the mentorship program.
Awesome. And Nikki?
Yeah, so as far as like networking opportunities, I think KU does a really good job of presenting a lot of different opportunities. It's just for you to take advantage of. So there's obviously networking with your classmates through courses and things of that nature, but also there's like a networking program through KU where you can find people that have the similar interests as you, that might have jobs that you eventually want to have. So they provide you all the tools. It's just up to you or how kind of in depth you really want to take those and use those. As far as the mentorship program, the mentor that I was paired with, he is over in Oregon, working as an operations director, and working with him through different assignments, being able to talk to him, same as Kathleen with a particular topic in our ethics course, about how ethical is it and what are the ethical ramifications of this was like in the thick of COVID, where is it ethical for these different conferences to start having seasons when there is a potential for student athletes to get COVID? What are the ethical ramifications, and those types of things. So that's been great. And then being able to connect with them via LinkedIn or have him know someone who would know someone who could get me in contact with the right person has been great.
Perfect. And we did get a question in the Q&A. And correct me if I'm wrong, these your mentors were assigned to you fairly recently, because that's when they started the program, I believe, a couple of semesters ago, correct?
Yes, at least my class got an email where there was a link to a page where we could go and find our mentor, and then it was part of an assignment to go and connect with them. But I think that it's all been pretty well organized, and they've really encouraged us to connect with that person.
Perfect.
Excellent. Well, so all the good things that we've talked about, what are some of the challenging parts of the program that you've seen?
I think the most challenging thing for me, as someone who's been out of school for a little while, I graduated in 2013 from undergrad. So the biggest thing has just been getting back into kind of the routine of studying and writing papers. But luckily I was already doing a fair amount of copywriting in my marketing role. But I think that, just pushing yourself to find that time during the week and really dedicate yourself to producing the best quality work you can has been the biggest challenge for me.
Awesome. Thank you. Ian?
Yeah, so I'd say time management for me has been the biggest challenge. Not that the course load is over the top or anything, and it's really not. It's just working a job and then also having to figure out how do I balance school with that. And I've been in school in the past. It's been, nope, school is the priority. This is what I do. But the thing that I've found to like address that challenge is just set aside as time for yourself. For me, it's generally been Thursday nights where we're cutting into my time right now, actually. It's just kidding. But where you set aside some time to just only focus on schoolwork. We all have busy lives, and sometimes it's easiest to set aside a little bit of time for yourself so that you can dedicate to your studies. So time management would be my answer.
Great. And Nikki?
I think the most challenging part for me has been kind of a combination of a few things, but definitely time management. Working as a new attorney, you work really long hours. So making sure I was carving out enough time to really dedicate and put my best product forward. And then sometimes with it being online, you really have to make sure that you are accountable to yourself, because there's not an in-person class that you're going to feel the peer pressure of not turning something in, or you're not going to say, have a classmate say, oh, where were you in class today? Because everything is online. So you really have to be accountable to yourself. Sometimes that can be challenging when you have a really busy or hectic life.
I do think a positive though, as someone who is not currently in a sports role, is that it's something that I have kind of been able to talk myself through as like, this is a highlight of my week. It's something that's exciting to look forward to because it's something that I really want to be doing these readings and I want to be having these conversations. And so that's something that's really helped me kind of overcome. That is, again, making it something to kind of look forward to. And I tell myself that that's like the time that I can sit on my computer in front of the NBA finals or do my reading with the NBA finals on in the background. And just make that part of kind of my weekly routine.
Yeah, I think one of the things I think that it's helped me as well is just kind of looking towards like, okay, like I'm going to do this because ultimately I want to end up here. So looking at it as a vehicle to get myself there has been a lot more helpful. And I definitely think the way that KU has everything set up, so instead of having like a full 16-week course, you have 2 8-week kind of blocks. So that way you're focusing all of your time on one course at a time. So for me, that's been really helpful because I can really kind of delve deep into sports finance or sports ethics and don't have to think about any other topic for those 8 weeks.
Perfect. And I just want to draw attention to one thing, that none of them said the most challenging part of their program was the admissions process. So hats off to Bryson and myself as the advisors in the program. Also,
way to go, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Pause for effect. And also Kathleen really wants to watch the NBA finals. Well,
I think everyone watching this is probably thinking that also.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that we have to address.
and speaking of how kind of finding that balance, and somebody did ask in the chat here if the program is synchronous or asynchronous. It is considered an asynchronous program without mandatory login times. But we'll start with Kathleen again. How do you manage that balance between your work, the work life, school balance, throwing that kind of into the cogs?
Yeah, like Ian, Thursday is kind of my designated study night. And so I generally try to get most of my readings done on one night and then do my papers or other assignments a night or two later. So I have a little bit of time to kind of think about it, and I'm not trying to cram everything into one night. Generally, our assignments for each unit are split up. So you have either a discussion post or a Zoom call, and then we have either a paper or a quiz. And then kind of a mixture of those throughout the semester. And so I begin each week by going through and kind of looking at that and making sure I have all of those dates written down, and then kind of going back and scheduling out from there. But it is nice because it's not necessarily an every single night commitment, and it's not again, without the scheduled classes, I can really kind of mold it into my own life.
Excellent. Ian?
Yeah, a lot like Kathleen was saying. I like to think, like, sometimes I don't realize that I'm thinking about what I'm about to be working on, and I'm somehow thinking about it in the background, and something will come to me kind of. So I always try to at least get a handle on what I'm doing first at the beginning of the week. And then if I don't get to it until later in the week, at least I've kind of had it in the back of my mind for the whole week. I'm kind of a procrastinator by nature, so that happens. But in terms of balance, I would say, like, there's a fair amount of coursework, but don't be afraid of like the amount of stress or coursework that it'll add to your life. It is, what they say, I don't know what the exact number that is, but that 5, 10, 8-ish hour a week range. So it's just a matter of like expecting it to take time. I think like setting expectations with yourself is the best way that I've balanced it, where it's like, yeah, maybe there was one night a week that I was just sitting down and watching TV that I'm not doing anymore because I'm also in school outside of work. But it's just finding like whatever the best way to balance the schoolwork with your life is making sure that it's replacing something that's not as important to you, I guess.
Excellent. And Nikki?
So I take a completely different approach than Kathleen or Ian. I work at home. So I have the luxury of being a little bit more flexible with when I do my work. So what I like to do is I like to wake up and because it's one of the more fun and enjoyable things I get to do on a daily basis, I do a lot of my schoolwork in the morning. So I'll read, maybe the requisite reading or we have a lot of articles and news kind of things. So, I might read that one morning and then, have that kind of be the highlight of my mornings. Or I don't know about anyone else. I get around 2:30. I'm kind of I need to do something different. So a lot of the times I'll write in the early afternoon to kind of break up my day. But yeah, it's definitely just time management, carving out those sections of time where you can just dedicate to it. And like Ian said, whether it be 8-10 hours a week, it's definitely doable as long as you plan accordingly and do recognize that it's not something you're going to be able to do in 2 hours on a Saturday.
All right, thank you for those answers. What surprised you the most about the online masters in sport management, or what surprised you most about our program?
I think a really pleasant surprise was just how hard the professors work to really bring in current conversation. Again, with those news articles and things that are included, I feel like everything that we have read, even if it's been, 10 years old, it's been really relevant to something today and to a conversation that, you can apply in a number of different ways. And obviously we're kind of at a crossroads with a lot of big decisions around sport with NIL legislation and that kind of thing. And so, I think, again, especially with it being online and having students from across the country, they've done a really, really nice job of making everything very current and applicable.
I think I'd say it's almost the biggest surprise, I agree with Kathleen on the applicability, but I think it's been surprising to me on how much of a variety of topics that we've touched on, because you kind of get a different professor almost every class. I think I've had now maybe my first repeat professor, but the professors bring a little bit of themselves to each class. And each class is kind of goes with the flow of current events, B, what the course stuff is, but then also C, we get to talk about some interesting things. I literally did a paper on the salary cap situation of my Timberwolves the other day. There's just all these different things that we get to touch on. And so it's been the amount of cool stuff I've gotten to touch on, for lack of a better way of putting it.
I think the most surprising thing was kind of just the willingness for so many people to really be super helpful. And everyone hears horrible stories about law school where it's super, super competitive and everyone is really cutthroat. So it's really great to come into a program where everyone really wants you to succeed. But the applicability of everything as well is, refreshing, because it's something that you would talk about maybe with friends that are also interested in sport. You can kind of carry that conversation over and how that applies to maybe sports finance or something like that, with trade caps and stuff like that. So I think just number one, the ability of people to be helpful and wanting to be helpful and wanting to succeed, even though we're all kind of doing similar things, but then two, the applicability and how transferable things are from coursework into like day-to-day conversation in life.
Excellent. All right. So here's the big open-ended one. So what advice and tips for success would you give to new students entering the program? Kind of what do you wish somebody had told you before you had entered the program? And once again, we'll start with Kathleen.
I actually had a really good kind of honest conversation with my admissions counselor that I think really set the tone for the whole program. I told her, you know, I don't know if this is exactly the fit. I don't know what I would do with this degree. And she was just so supportive. And she said, you know, it sounds like everything you're interested in is in this program. They will guide you. They will help you find what you want to do through this program. And that's 100% been true. We get almost weekly emails on different career opportunities in sport and, you know, current job listings for us to apply to. And again, everyone's been so supportive. And so far I've been very interested in everything we've done and have really enjoyed the assignments, even though they are work and do take some time and some thought. But I think that for anybody who's out there kind of wondering, you know, I really like sports. I really think that these topics look interesting, but, you know, I don't exactly have a direction. Go ahead and do it. I mean, I think that this program is so well organized and has been just such a good fit for me so far that I would just say, take the jump.
Excellent. Kathleen's going with the Nike approach with just do it. We'll go with Ian next.
I know that I've kind of said this in some of the other answers, but my biggest thing is like you get what you put in with this. So take the program. The program has a shell, but you can kind of form it to what you want to do. Like there's a lot of open-ended projects. The professors are super there for you. So like if you want to work on something or you have an idea to take a project and run with it differently than the way that it's set up, you can do it. So like find a way to fit the program into what you want from it and use those resources like Kathleen was talking about, where there's job listings that we get literally every week that you can apply for. There's people that you're talking to who are in the sports industry already that are just your classmates, or people that also want to get into the sports industry that might have ideas. So my biggest advice is like figure out what you want out of this program and then you can use it for that and it'll be there for you. Like it works with you basically.
Great advice to make the program your own. Nikki, you got two great pieces of advice to follow up. What do you got?
So number one, know yourself as far as your time management. Because like we said, it is completely online and it is really up to you. So I think don't kid yourself into thinking that it's only, you know, it's online, so it's going to be easier somehow, or it's going to be of a different quality, because it's not. It's definitely just as rigorous as anything else that you might have in person. So tip number one, make sure you're planning time, make sure you plan accordingly so you can produce the highest quality work. Second, I think don't pigeonhole yourself. I wanted to make sure personally that I got a really well-rounded sports management education because of what I want to do. But don't limit yourself to thinking, oh, I know I want to do X, so I really only want to learn about X, Y, and Z because that's how it pertains to the career that I think I want to do. So don't limit yourself. And number three, really take the opportunities that KU has. So with networking, make sure you're doing those things, make sure you're reaching out to your mentor, make sure you're talking and really responding and learning and getting to know your other classmates, because that's really going to help you later on in life when you're trying to get a job and one of your classmates already works at that institution, already works with that organization. So making sure that you're taking every opportunity to network.
I think playing off of Nikki's first point too, just realizing this is more than just sitting at the bar and talking about sports. There is a lot of research involved, and there's a lot of, opportunity to really push yourself to think deeper about these things in the discussions in your individual papers. And the research that we do individually makes us all so much better. And I think that the discussions, especially for that reason, have been really, really productive, because you see so many different angles, because those questions are relatively open-ended and everybody takes a slightly different approach. And I think that that is, something that's only making us better through this program as well, being able to kind of build off of that knowledge and experience of others.
I actually kind of want to ask, like, personally, a question outside of what we have prepared here, based on what Kathleen had just said, to each of you. Have you found those, not necessarily sitting at a bar talking to your friends, but we all have those conversations with our friends, family, those types of things about sport. Have you found yourself approaching those conversations differently based on what you've learned in the program?
I think so. I primarily just because I am doing the research and am a little bit, I've always been relatively news focused, and TweetDeck is always open on my computer. So I've always kind of seen the headlines, but seeing the motivation of the university or of a communications staff, or financial motivations, I think that all of that is kind of informing us to look at everything on a deeper level and see beyond that headline why people are doing what they do.
We can go to Ian and Nikki with that if you have any input.
Yeah, I think I feel really informed in like a good way. And it has shifted me to be able to, like, I guess, have a broader perspective on sports, like, and we touch on so many different areas of the world of sport, where whether it's, international things that you might not be exposed to, like, I don't know, rugby things. Like, there's these videos that we're always watching that are from different countries, and you're getting their perspective. Like, we have, or at least I personally have, like, a pretty, like, American centric view of sports. I think it's been kind of cool to see, well, this is how it's different in other countries. So that's been something that's cool. And then additionally, like, things like stadium naming rights, so things that you just don't think about or take for granted, like, oh, this is what X field or X, like, name your company center, like, we're forced to flip and think of, like, all right, but why and how does that benefit both sides? So I think it just, like, has given me new perspectives in those conversations.
And Nikki, if you'd like to touch on if this has had any effect on how you have kind of casual conversations with people about the industry of sport.
Yeah, obviously, in my profession, the like naming rights of things, or how certain legislation is written and how certain rules are written, and obviously how they're written is going to affect how, like, the practical application. So kind of knowing a little bit of, like, okay, this is the legal side of it, and this is legally why it's written like this, and this is legally how this theoretically should work. But kind of knowing the more practical, like, this is actually how it's going to be applied, and this is actually how it's going to affect people, like name, image, and likeness, like how, yes, this is legally how it's set up, but, like, knowing more of a well-rounded kind of perspective of, okay, this is how it's supposed to work, but is this how it's going to actually happen? And having those types of discussions and being able to bring in some of those different viewpoints has definitely changed the way that I talk about sports and how I view sports, and as a whole.
All right, so we do have a couple of minutes left here. We have a couple of questions in the Q&A section. Bryson, if you'd like to handle those, you should be able to get those on the students' behalf.
Yeah, so as we kind of talked about before, each class or each course is 8 weeks. So within a semester, you'll take two 2 courses a semester for the entire program. And then the other is if you plan to go to school full time, how many classes can you take per 8-week period? Um, I believe it is the way it's set up is just the 1 to 2 a semester, but there are instances where people can, if they have a little bit more time, um, we can set it up to where you can take maybe 2 courses or 2 classes within an 8-week period or for a semester. But it just kind of depends on, your schedule. Is there anything else you want to add to that, Jeremiah? I know sometimes there's different.
No, and I mean, we can kind of take some from our panelists as well on that. I know that have any of you kind of taken the plunge and tried to take more than one course at a time?
I have not. The summer course did overlap by 2 weeks. And that's the only real time that I've had the multiple classes at once. But I think the schedule has been great for somebody who is working full time as well.
Perfect. Yeah, I know that there are some students that do it. I know it's not for everybody. But you do have the chance to take potentially more than one course, but it's built to take one course at a time over the course of 2 years, which especially if you're working tends to be what works out best. Is there a set way you have to take the courses? I'm assuming that question is concerning order of courses. And I guess you would be assigned a student success coordinator should you be admitted into the program, and they would work with you for setting up a sequence of courses, but there's not necessarily a direct order that you have to take the class in where it's like cohort based. You do also have the ability, some flexibility as far as we mentioned, finishing faster. Also, if it does end up where you need to take some more time, you have some flexibility with that as well, as long as you don't miss more than a year consecutively, as well as you need to finish the program within 7 years of starting it. Also, please don't take 7 years to finish the program from starting it. It's a very long time. We're sure that y'all would like to utilize the benefits that come along with having your master's degree before 7 years.
Yeah, I'll just kind of add on that. We did get like a set schedule basically, because I'm pretty sure there's only a couple classes offered at a time in the sport management department. So you just get a set schedule and you kind of just follow it, but it's not like the classes are their own thing, sort of. They're not necessarily building to answer like the scheduling questions, but there are 2 things. There's a self-study credit and a internship credit, which you can take care of at any time throughout. So if the concern is about, well, I want more course load at this time or this time, those are the 2 flexible courses, which are kind of built into your schedule, but can be done at any time.
And I don't believe that any of you got the chance to do it. The self-study course can be taken up by the study abroad program, which previously had been done in Auckland, New Zealand, which I'm super jealous of because it looked fun. They helped out with a large-scale soccer camp as well as a professional rugby team. I believe this year it's not technically study abroad, but in order to make it a little more stable as far as the travel goes, they're doing it in Hawaii, helping out with a PGA Tour event for a few weeks down there. So
I actually am planning to go to that, Jeremiah, and so yeah, if anybody has any further questions on that.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, that's a really cool opportunity that students are having.
But yeah, that goes to the flexibility that I was kind of saying.
Perfect. And we do want to give y'all, I know Kathleen's probably sitting over there chomping at the bit, ready to go watch the NBA finals tonight. For those who are watching recorded, it's game 2 tonight. But if anybody does have any more questions, the deadline for applying for the fall to take courses is August 6th, with the classes starting August 23rd. Please feel free to get in touch with either Bryson or myself if you haven't already. We do have a lot of different ways that we can help you out. If you're qualified for the program, we could potentially offer you a waiver for the application fee. Also getting you more information that pertains to you. If this is a good program for you, or if it's not, I mean, it really benefits you to talk to us about whether or not it would be a good fit for you. We'd be happy to talk with any of you kind of just about if this will suit your goals and if the program would be a good fit for you in general. But yeah, if you, yeah, and actually it looks like they included an application fee waiver for you there. If you want to copy that down, that should work. They do tend to be a little finicky on where they go on the application. So get into contact with Bryson and I either way, and we'll make sure that we are able to help you out. But to all of our panelists, thank you, even though we took up about 2 minutes more than we asked for. We're very grateful to get the knowledge that you guys have about how you function in this program. And yeah, feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any more questions. Yeah, rock chalk.